Alright, in lieu of a dumpy intro, I'm just going to explain a little bit about what I do with Nikon cameras and video so that my demands that I make to Nikon make a little more sense to you. I am a Nikon video creator and I have a Z6 II as well as two Z6s. I use them to film multicam, live podcasts, commercials, social media videos, YouTube videos, primarily for brands. I also do a little filming of live comedy stuff as kind of a hobby. I am looking forward to another new Z body, whether it's the Z8 or Z6III. That's what I think it's going to be. I just need a few of the things from the Z9 in a new updated body from Nikon that's cheaper than it. But I also would like a few things from the Z30 if that's possible, which sounds crazy to want something from like an $800 camera for my professional workflow. But personally, where I'm coming from, I ended up getting the FX6 a little bit before the Z9 came out, and obviously I could sell it so I can be on one lens mount and stuff like that, but I really like the FX6. I like it as my high-end video camera, and then I can use Z bodies to fill in the cracks. I love my Z lenses, but there's just something about the FX6 body type and the XLR inputs and the modularity that I just don't think Nikon's going to make something like that for quite some time. So I'm going to stick with the FX6, but I am looking to a Z6III or Z8 as a few more updates to help my everyday smaller camera, the Z6 II. What are some things that I want to see from the Z6III or Z8? I'm going to call it the Z6III. You can call that manifesting for the rest of this video because that's what I think it's going to be called, and that's what I'm most interested in. Well, first and foremost, I want to have the option of not using the Ninja V. As a video shooter, I am constantly figuring out a way to mount the Ninja V to my Z6 II or Z6. I just cannot do hardly any video things without it. The first and most important thing that I need the Ninja V for is to record 10-bit footage in N-Log. That is an important part of video. I shoot almost everything I shoot in N-Log. Internal 10-bit is a must on the next Nikon body. There's lots of smaller, cheaper cameras and cameras that are parallel to the Nikon Z6 that can do that, and so I just really need that new feature. If you look at the R7 or the A7R4 or of course the A7S III and FX3, all of those can shoot internal 10-bit, so I think it's time for Nikon to come out with another camera that can do that. Of course, the Z9 has all kinds of great codecs like ProRes RAW and ProRes. That's exactly what I'm looking for. I do love the internal 8-bit. It is decent for certain applications where you don't want to color grade, but as a pro video producer, you really need that 10-bit at least to grade your videos with any sort of clarity. And of course, when you work with the Ninja V, you get extended dynamic range as well, which is also super important. And another reason why I would like the FX6, because it has great dynamic range as well. Another reason I'm constantly mounting my Ninja V to my Z6 II is to bypass the record limit. So in fact, the Z30 and the Z9 both have much longer recording limits than the Z6 II does. Z6 II is at 29 minutes, and the Atomos Ninja V allows you to usurp around that. However, I think that's really silly. If I want to record just basic, really simple video for a quick social media turnaround, or I record a video when I'm doing live comedy stuff, just so we have a tape to review later, we don't really use it for productions or anything, I would really love the ability to just pop a camera on a tripod and just record an hour or 2 hours of footage. And that's once again something you could do on the Z30, which is a $700 camera, compared to this, which I paid over $1,000 for. So bypassing the record limit is definitely something I feel like I should be able to do without paying for a Ninja V. Another thing that the Ninja V does for my workflow that's really important is exposure and focus tools. Using the viewfinder is a great way to get correct focus and check your exposure, but we really, as video creators, need more advanced tools such as waveforms, zebras, and focus peaking. Now, the Z6 offers zebras and focus peaking, however, they can't be on at the same time. So if you have any footage where it's okay to be out of focus, but it's not okay to be too bright, you're going to be loving the Z6 II. If you ever need to, I don't know, know if your footage is overexposed, and know if it's in focus at the same time, you're going to need to use the Ninja V to be able to do that. And I think that's a very, very silly place to be. When I use the Z6 and Z6II with the Atomos Ninja V, I get all the exposure tools that I need. I get waveforms, focus peaking, and zebras. And it tells me if the footage is going to look the way I need it to look in post when I'm editing. So having all of those tools on the screen at the same time does get a little crowded, but I think it's definitely worth having all three. I believe the Z9, you can use all three at the same time, but yeah, that's definitely something that I would like to see in another body from Nikon. When I run the Z6 on a gimbal, I have to run a cable from the Z6 to the Atomos Ninja V. Then I have to run a cable back to the Raven Eye so I can use my phone for monitoring and remote features. I know when the Z6 first came out, which was like 4 years ago, they had this whole thing going with the ProRes RAW of it all, and that's just not something that is really what a lot of filmmakers I think are using at this point. Like I've said, there are much cheaper cameras like the R7, A7R4, and more expensive cameras like the A7S III that all have internal 10-bit footage, and I think it's time for Nikon to release a sub $2,000 body, sub $2,500 body that has that Pro Video feature that I think a lot of people want. The other problem with the Ninja V is always having to power it. It's also not a battery sipper, especially when you've got that brightness all the way up so you can see the screen in difficult lighting conditions. It chugs through NPF batteries, so being able to power it for a long amount of time is just a pain in the butt. I would love to just have my Z6III with a battery grip with 2 Nikon batteries in there and be able to shoot all day without any additional accessories. I think that would be an awesome place to be. Another thing a lot of people are interested in a new release from Nikon is getting a new sensor. Now, Nikon has publicly stated, or rumor stated, I'm not sure exactly which, that they're done with the 24 megapixel sensors and they're going to go either bigger or smaller in the future. That's fine. Once again, personally for me, as a video shooter, I would love to see something like akin to a C70, so maybe go down to an APS-C sensor, 21 megapixels, and have great 6K. I'm not super excited about 8K, more interested in 6K personally, but I understand that with sensor sizes, 8K is probably what we're going to be looking at. Personally, I deliver a lot of projects professionally in 1080p, which I'm sure you've heard before. It's not that uncommon of a thing when you're doing web stuff or even things for larger clients. However, I would like to start publishing more things in 4K, and so having a 6 or 8K sensor will help that out for me quite a bit. And I understand that as a Nikon camera, it's always going to have to cater to photo and video because they have so many photo customers. There's some challenges there, and sensor sizes are always a trade-off, but I think there's something we can find with a new sensor that's either above or below 24 megapixels that gets the job done. Another thing I would love to see is 4K 60 or 4K 120 with very little changes to the image. I know when I punch in on my FX6 into 120, it does crop in a teeny tiny bit, but other than that, the 4K 120 looks almost exactly the same as the 60 and 24p, and I think that's a great place to be. So I love to see higher resolution, slow motion options that are usable. Like on the Z6II, they have 4K 60 with a crop. I don't really care for it, and you can't record it in 10-bit in any way, so it just doesn't really work for me. If I need slow motion in 10-bit, I'm going to have to be using the FX6. Something from the Z30 that I would like to have is a flexible screen. The Z30 screen is great. I would take that copy paste onto a Z6III body. However, I think what they're doing over at Panasonic is actually really top notch over there. They have a great screen that can tilt and then also flip out. It adds ability to put some cooling in maybe behind there. It adds that ability to see what you're doing and line up your image exactly with how you're moving your camera. I think it's a really great implementation, and I would love to see that exactly come to the Z6III. For doing something like I'm doing right now, I really appreciate being able to flip the camera around, and unfortunately when I'm using the Z6 on a tripod, there's just nothing I can do. Even if I'm looking at it slightly from an angle, there's also nothing I can do again to see that main screen. So I'd love to see some more flexibility. The Z9 also has a really cool interface where it can go all the way to the side and move a couple different ways, but it's not quite able to flip out to see you when you're in the front. So some hybrid between the Z30 and Z9 screen is exactly what I'd like to see on a new body from Nikon. Now, when I first saw this next feature in the Z9 preview video, I was absolutely dumbfounded. It seemed like such a no-brainer, and I'm so confused why it doesn't come to more cameras. And that is the vertical interface. When you rotate the Z9 into portrait mode with that awesome battery grip that it always has on it, the interface rotates. So all of the implements on the screen turn 90 degrees so you can see them in a normal standing way. And I thought to myself, well, my Z6 can tell when it's on its side because it has a level that it uses, and it can tell with a gyroscope what way it's facing. So why don't all cameras do this? Now, I understand it's a programming challenge to have that happen, but I think it's just super silly that all cameras don't have a portrait interface. That would definitely put them leagues above when it comes to portrait video, which is becoming more and more commonplace. When I want to rotate my camera 90 degrees and record portrait video, it is a pain in the butt. Everything's rotated sideways, adjusting settings is hard, reading settings is hard, and it's all just very silly. So if Nikon could make a camera that records portrait video in a really optimized way, I think that would be a unique thing that they have over other camera brands. Both the Nikon Z30 and the Z9 and a lot of other cameras use a record ring as well as tally lights to tell you when your camera is recording. I think that would be an awesome thing to see in the Z6II and Z6. I don't think it would be a huge problem to have that red ring around it to show when it's recording, especially in a Z6III or Z8. I'd really like to have that big red ring telling you when you're recording. Even the most experienced videographers sometimes make a mistake and think they pressed that button when they didn't, and then don't record what they need to record. And having the big red ring really helps you know exactly if you're recording or not. I know just recently when I was on stage doing some recording of my live comedy performance, I was able to use the tally light on the Ninja V to see that the camera had stopped recording and make sure that I go over and restart it. So tally lights and a red ring, super helpful for making sure your camera is recording from a distance, and things that I think are really simple and easy to bring forward to a new camera body from Nikon. The last thing that I would really like to see is a more pronounced dedicated record button. When you look at the GH6 and the Z30, the record button is just much more prominent. And when you look at the Z6II, it is tucked up in a corner, and I'm very used to just putting my finger right on there because I barely ever press the actual shutter. I press the record button much more frequently, but I would just like a little bit more emphasis put on the record button, maybe make it a little bigger, a little bit more centralized, and then I think that will be a little bit more comfortable in my hands, and also show Nikon's commitment to video production as something that they actually care about. So I've gone through a lot of things that I'd like to see in a new Nikon body, and this is the stage where we can just dream and wish what we want into reality. But I think the most important thing for me is that I will not spend another dime on a Nikon camera body unless it has internal 10-bit and ProRes video recording. It's just not worth it, and if they come out with a few more camera bodies that just aren't quite there when it comes to video production, that's where I might start thinking about selling all of my Nikon stuff and going fully into Sony. As it stands right now, I really love my Nikon colors. I like how they look. I like how they look a little different from Sony and Canon. Obviously, when you're grading footage, you can make it look however you want, but I'm not a super great color grader, so I really appreciate how Nikon's colors look with the LUT and a few adjustments, and I appreciate being able to get that image in a very simple way. So that's why I continue to use Nikon. The other thing that I really like is their really great lenses. Whether it's legacy f-mount lenses that have been modded to be cinema lenses, or the great Z lenses, that's another reason why I'll stick with Nikon and don't switch full over into Sony. There's certainly a version of reality where I sell my Nikon stuff, get an A7R4 and a couple FX3s, and get myself back up to 4 cameras. But as it stands right now, I really want to stick with the Nikon Z stuff because I love the lenses so much, and so I just need Nikon to really step it up a little bit. Personally, I'm not looking for a whole lot more lenses. I'd love to see a 70-200 f4 that's super lightweight and compact and cool. I'd love to see an 85 1.2 prime lens, and I'd love to see more video focus lens, maybe a servo lens or something that is manual focus with the gears built in, just ready to rock and roll with video production. But there's just some upgrades that I'm still looking for to make sure that the Nikon Z bodies can continue to be part of my workflow. Thanks so much for listening to me wish and dream for the features that I want. If you are a Nikon video creator, I try to make a lot of videos about that because it's not a very well-served market. That's why I like being a little bit unique in what I use to shoot video. I also would love people to follow this channel, which could really be renamed Golden Toucan Gear. I talk about video gear on this channel, especially Nikon stuff. That seems to be something that people actually care to hear about. You know, there's hundreds of videos about the FX6 made every day. There's not really much I can say about it. That's going to be especially interesting. Appreciate you guys watching and commenting and letting me know what kind of Nikon video questions you have. I've done great videos about how to power your Nikon cameras, done great videos about my Nikon lens collection for video. So if you're interested in those kinds of things, please do check out my channel and watch those videos and see if they can be helpful to you as well. As always, I have my Moment Shop link in the description. Unfortunately, Moment Shop does not carry the Nikon Z products, which is quite annoying, but I understand they're not the most popular out there. But if you have any cell phone case needs or filter needs, Moment Shop is a great place to go. If you use my link in the description, that just helps me out a little bit. It's just a generic affiliate link to help me support what I do on this channel.